Brent Pella, dude. This is an honor, man. I'm a huge fan.
Thank you, bro. I'm a fan of you. I'm a fan of
Oh,
you. For
oh,
real.
that's
I was before we met, and I'm just happy to make friends with people that I'm already fans of, so I don't feel
oh,
as weird around them.
I didn't know that. That's cool. Yeah, man. I just so it was a pleasant surprise. So I went and saw you do stand up. My wife and I here in Austin, Texas, a couple months ago, and then I went. JP Sears had a show, and JP is a personal friend of both of ours, and it was cool. He said, "Hey, text me when you get here, and I'll bring you back to the green room." And I had my funny thing to say to JP lined up. I was gonna be like, "Hey, are there any funny comedians here that are in the green room that I can hang out with?" And he opens up the secret door to the green room, and I walk back, and you're back there. And that was a total pleasant surprise. I had no idea that you were opening up for him, man.
Yeah, yeah. So the answer was yes. There was one.
There was one significantly funnier comedian. Yeah, it's funny that's actually I discovered you. I found one of your videos. I think it was the mask video.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think that was the first video of yours I saw, and I showed it to my wife. I said, "Hey, I was like, he's kind of like JP Sears but funnier." And then I text JP and I said, "Hey, I said you should do a video with this guy." And he said, "Dude, we recorded it like 3 days ago, and
Yeah,
it goes on YouTube tomorrow." I was like, "Oh, that's awesome." So,
yeah.
yeah,
That's
man.
great, man. I love JP. We met a couple years ago, pre-COVID, pre-Pandy days is when we
Mm,
met. So we kind of went through that whole transitionary phase with our comedy together.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's been a blast, and it was super cool to see out in Austin too.
Well, that's what I love about your comedy is, I was just to brush up. I was on your YouTube looking at your videos, and I was like, your range is really dynamic. JP, for example, used to be all about spiritual comedy, and then he went really hard into political comedy.
Hmm.
And you hit on political comedy, right? But then you have, like with Nikki Howard, your partner in crime, the couples comedy, and
Yeah, yeah,
and you do a lot of impressions. So I like that it's like if somebody were to look at your YouTube channel, they're like, I'm not sure what his exact beliefs are or where he leans, which is
yeah,
great. It's kind of it appeals to everybody, right? Your Biden
yeah.
impression's great. You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
Yeah, I thank you for that. That's a cool thing to kind of hear somebody's perspective when they're trying to figure out, oh, what's this guy all about? And I
yeah,
think that's been both a blessing and a curse in a way
mm,
in the whole Hollywood game and just entertainment in general and trying to make a career
yeah,
because you really do. I've seen a lot of people really create this foundation of following and fans and support because they plant their flag in a
yep,
certain hill, right? And they
yep,
they stick to a certain belief or a certain style of comedy, even if it's outside of the political realm. Like it's just this thing, it's just impressions of this guy, or it's just topical comedy. But like I just enjoy so many different things that I kind of made the conscious decision a few years ago to do whatever I thought was fun.
yeah,
And if that means slow growth, cool. That I as long I'm gonna be happy to grow slow,
yeah.
So it's interesting to hear you say that because that is kind of that's been a choice along the way.
Yeah, that is cool. That and for me, that similarly, I'm not a comedian, but with podcasting and writing and being an online influencer, whatever you want to call it, um, I obviously have, some opinions around things. And
Mhm.
where I've landed is what's my objective? Like, I'll see a topic and I'll feel like passionate, like, man, I want to share this. And my
Yeah,
wife will keep me grounded and remind me, sweetie, your mission is to inspire people. If you go hard on any one opinion, right, you could, turn off half of the audience and now you can't
right,
help them anymore. Right. And so,
right.
same with you. If you do take that plant that flag like JP's done, right? Which more power to him because he's grown a lot since then. His audience has, but yeah, by planting that flag, you then you turn off, half of the audience, and now you're not going to make those people laugh when your comedy makes everybody laugh, which is cool.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly it. And the objective, the mission, what is and for me it's typically the thought process is like what is the value that I want to put into the world? Like is tweeting something political or sharing an article or making a video like this, does that align with the values that I personally want to put into the
Yeah,
world? There's plenty of people whose value they want to put into the world is specifically progressive liberal ideas or conservative value, and that's totally fine, because that should happen. We should have people.
We need that too. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. My value has always been like, how can I comment on the absurdity of what's happening?
Yeah.
And just kind of share an opinion that might bring people from different sides of the spectrum into this opinion,
Yeah.
So that's what's prevented me from going like fully one way or the other on certain things. Although I do lean from time to time, and that's just fun.
Sure.
But yeah,
well,
it definitely is like that.
I feel like you just said something that, I feel like unity is what we need now more than ever. Right. So if you can be unifying where you're not picking a side on any topic, right? You're saying, hey, like, what's bigger than that? To me, what's bigger than that is our humanity. Like I always say that what we have in common trumps what our differences are superficial. You believe this, you believe that, you think this, you think that, right? Versus, oh, you're a human being and so am I. And we're on this journey called life. And that to me trumps everything. And then therefore values like kindness and love and unity, that trumps, you can't say Trump now without there being this association, but right. So
yeah.
All right. So this morning, when I went to YouTube to start just, refreshing my Brent Pella material, I ended up a Norm Macdonald video popped up. And awesome. I ended up, instead of spending an hour watching your videos, I just watched Norm Macdonald videos this morning.
An hour much better spent.
Yeah, man. And it's so true. He's one of those artists that I didn't appreciate until he was gone. And then I started to hear other comedians talk about him and, and then I saw, did you see his, the last stand-up he did on the Letterman show? Did you see that?
I don't think I did. No. Was it recent years?
It was before he passed. So, I mean, in the last year or so, I'll send it to you. It was powerful because it was an incredible set, hilarious. And then toward the end, and no one knew he was dying of cancer except for him. And then toward the end, he starts saying, I think this is the last time that I'll be on this show. And he just broke down and started crying and was like, Dave, I love you. You've done so much. Anyway. Wow. So yeah, man, I'm a fan. Who are some of your favorite comedians? It's a good segue.
Of all time, Jim Carrey is up there. My mom, I grew up with a single mom, and we would watch Saturday Night Live all the time. This is right after the Chris Farley era, going into the Will Ferrell era, and then the Lonely Island era after that with Andy Samberg.
Yeah.
So, Will Ferrell is like in my top 3. He's on my Mount Rushmore. Jim Carrey for sure, especially what he was doing on In Living Color. The whole Fire Marshal Bill.
Fire Marshal Bill. I watched it. Yep.
Let me tell you something. Right. I love Eddie. I love what Eddie used to do. And Robin Williams, man. Just his insanity, his controlled insanity is something I absolutely loved. And also those guys that I just mentioned all dipped into drama really well too. Robin Williams, Jim Carrey, they all did a really good job anytime they were a part of a drama project. And I like that a lot because, a lot of comedians are like broken. You hear those cliches that comedians are like broken inside or like something terrible had to have happened.
Yeah.
For some, maybe, but for others, I think, comedians have a certain perspective toward the world that allows them to see the light and the dark. And that's what helps them facilitate their commentary on what's happening in society. And so I always liked comedians who could do really well, both in comedy and in darker drama projects, because it really showed another side of humanity that I think a lot of other actors who maybe only do drama wouldn't be to reach.
Well, yeah, I honestly think that like Adam Sandler is a good example of someone who I think is a way better dramatic actor. Yeah, right? Way better dramatic actor than comedic actor. His comedy, it's all right.
I like his style. Yeah, but for him in the drama world, incredible. Yeah.
Did you see Hustle, his newer one?
Yep, loved it.
Such a good movie, man. Right. Such a good movie.
Uncut Gems, phenomenal.
Yeah. Now, are you a fan of? So my favorite comedian right now, next to Brent Pella, right? So second favorite comedian is Nate Bargatze. Are you following him at all?
Dude, absolutely. Yeah. He's one of the best storytellers I've ever heard.
Dude, he's so subtle. He's so funny. He's so clever. Yeah, man. I'm a big Nate Bargatze fan. All right. So let's talk about your start. So actually, I have to mention this. selfishly, so this doesn't apply to my audience, but everybody listen. A buddy of mine, Garrett Gunderson, has been doing comedy tour for the last couple of years. He's been touring the country, and his background is like a financial expert. And he just decided, like, I'm going to get out of my comfort zone and, you know, make this bucket list thing happen. And now he's doing shows all over the country. And so he recently reached out and said that I could open for him at his next show. Now, I'm a keynote speaker. I tell jokes in my speech, but I'm not a stand-up comedian. So I'm like, I'm terrified and I want to do it, right? Because I'm like, I got to get out of my comfort zone and do this thing. So I want to hear, you know, from somebody that's a professional comedian that's absolutely hilarious. Like, let's start with how did you get your start? And then I might pick your brain for like, how do I write jokes? But let's start with like, I want to hear your background.
Yeah. So, you know, I was doing, when I was in high school, going into college, and then all through college, my favorite, the biggest thing in comedy was Andy Samberg and the Lonely Island guys on Saturday Night Live. This is
how old are you, by the way, to give context?
Yeah, I'm 32. This was 2008 through 2012, 2013 ish. So this was basically my entire college. This was,
dude. I thought you were way older than that. Continue.
That's what everybody says. You should see the top of my head. You would have thought I was 40. So
no, just I thought 40 was just your face, but go continue.
I'm 27 in the body. This is back when SNL was like crushing on digital shorts, and they were just super, super funny. And so they were such a big inspiration for me and all my friends. We started shooting little comedy sketches with like a handy cam, right? This is pre-iPhone. This is handy cam days.
Yeah.
And then in college, we did it a little bit more. And I got into film and media in college and made a couple of comedy music videos just for fun. I was also making like music videos for local hip hop artists in Santa Barbara.
Okay.
And just as like a part of my filmmaking kind of self-experience, I was in the film program in college too.
Okay.
And I realized that, you know, I'm making such good videos for these guys. Why don't I make a comedy video for myself? And so I did. And it went viral in the UC Santa Barbara scene. And we would play it at like frat parties and we would play it at house parties. It was crazy. It was super fun.
What was the topic of that? What was that video?
The first one was called Bike Path Love. UC Santa Barbara has miles of bike paths, and people are half naked just all the time, you know, in bathing suits and whatever. And there's gorgeous girls biking around the bike paths all the time. And I felt like I was falling in love every time I went to the library. So I made a song. It's still out right now. Nice. And it got like really big in the UC Santa Barbara scene. And that was my first kind of like taste of any type of success with entertainment or comedy. And I wasn't taking it seriously at all. It was just for fun.
Yeah.
And I moved to LA after, and I'm making more music videos and short films with a buddy of mine. But I really wanted to get into comedy. So I dove into stand-up and improv. Actually, here's a cool story. Here's a cool story of how I a little more detail. So when I was in LA, I first moved to Los Angeles. I was working at the Cheesecake Factory, which I truly believe that everybody in America should be forced to work at a restaurant for 2 years.
Yeah.
The same way people in Europe are forced to work in the army, people in America should be forced to work at a
restaurant. My wife feels the same way. Yeah. She was in, she feels the same way.
So I was at Cheesecake Factory for my first full year in LA. And a friend of mine was at LMU and was on campus and sent me a picture of this flyer that was posted up on a building. And it said casting extras for a Lonely Island music video. Call this number. And I saw that and I looked at the picture, and in the bottom right corner, there was a logo. It was like a CC logo, and it said caviar. And I thought to myself, you know, I could go be an extra, but wouldn't it be cooler to try to like weasel my way into some type of assistant position so I could be like really behind the scenes and learn about these dudes and what their process is? So I Googled caviar. Turns out it's Caviar Content, a production company out in LA. I start calling. I just cold call them. And I'm trying to get in touch with a producer. And obviously you don't do that. You don't just call a production company and ask to get in touch with like a high level person. So immediately they say no. The next couple of days they say no. So then I call back and I pretend like I'm a producer from a different production company. And this time they transfer me to a producer. And as soon as I get in touch with that producer, I pretend like I'm somebody else. I say, hey, I'm working with this great kid. He's a PA. a production assistant. I'd love to like
So like you were your own agent essentially.
Exactly, but for like an assistant, assistants don't have agents. So I had no idea what I was doing, but
Yeah.
I said I must have said the right thing because this person then gave me the number for the production manager, which is who you really want. That's the person that fills out all those roles.
Okay.
So now I have this person's number, and I call her, and she doesn't pick up. So I leave a message to say, "Hey, my name is Brent. I just graduated college. Da 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 da. I would love to be an assistant. I'm not looking for a paycheck. I just want the experience. Whatever." She doesn't pick up for like 5 days. I'm texting. I'm calling at least once a day, no more than twice a day because I didn't want to be insane. But 7 days straight, I call for sure. And then we get to the night before the shoot. And now I'm nervous because this is the only time I've ever heard of like a PA type of opportunity. I don't know anybody in the industry. I'm fresh out of the Cheesecake Factory. I got soup all over me. And I just want the chance to work on set.
Yeah.
And so I call her at like 5 p.m. The shoot is the next day. And she picks up for the first time. And she's like, yes. And I say, hey, is this Sarah or whatever? And she goes, yeah. Is this Brent, my favorite stalker? And I was like, oh, hey, I'm sorry. I started apologizing. And I said, I really want the opportunity to do this. And I'm not looking for a paycheck. I'm in the film program at school. I just graduated and I'm a comedian. And she goes, okay, you know what? Here's what's going to happen. And I want you to know that this is not the way that things happen in Hollywood. Okay. So don't expect this to happen. Okay. But I'm going to bring you on as an unpaid intern. Okay. So your call time is 5 a.m. I need you to pick up 3 gallons of Starbucks on the way.
Nice.
And I was so excited, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Brought me on. So then I was a PA on a Lonely Island video. And here's the kicker. I meet the producers on set. They keep bringing me back to more jobs in the months after that. I quit Cheesecake Factory. So now my day job becomes a PA and I start living on set and learning and working on set at age 22. And on that particular shoot, on that Lonely Island shoot, it was a 2-day shoot. And on the last day after wrap, Andy Samberg is drinking a beer in the crafty line and having some food. And I go up to him and I'm like, hey, man, I was super nervous. I was like, hey, I just finished school. I do a couple of like comedy videos online per month. I'm curious, what did you guys do when you first moved out to LA? Were you just doing videos? Did you pitch shows? And he goes, oh, well, when I first moved to LA, I did stand-up and I was doing stand-up in New York too. And I was never very good, but I did stand-up for like 7 years and it really helped me write and get used to being in front of people. And that's when it kind of like clicked for me. And so after that, I started doing open mics, and that was kind of the kick in the ass that I guess I needed to hear to start doing open mics. So that
gave you direction. It gave you clarity. Oh, this is what I'm.
Yeah.
Andy Samberg said, do stand up. I'm doing stand up.
One of my heroes said he did this and he got better from it. Of course, I got to do that. So that whole experience of chasing that opportunity down is what kind of set a foundation for the future. Yeah.
Well, such a cool story. And one of the lesson from that to me, for anybody listening, right, is persist until you succeed. How many of us would have called every single day and risked, I think most would be like, oh, I don't want to annoy them, or I don't want to turn them off, or I don't want what you're like, dude, I got to get their attention. I love that. I love that.
Yeah. That whole closed mouths don't get fed trope, it's very real. And if you can figure out a way to consistently stalk and annoy somebody without them fearing for their safety, I think that's the key.
Yeah. I don't know why that story reminded me, or the stalking portion of the weird Airbnb guest video that you did.
Oh yeah.
I've showed that one to my
that's
kids.
A deep cut. Yeah, that's a fun one.
Yeah, that's great. So let's talk about the comedy landscape right now. One of the things that I thought about is man, so my audience is really diverse, right? But if I had to pick the majority, probably 60% is women like 40 to 50 years old, right? And then 40% is, men that range, and then a few younger folks, right? But that's kind of the majority. And so I thought, man, a lot of Brent's videos would probably be offensive to some of my audience, right? And I personally am I'm not a big fan of being offended. Like, I just feel like being offended is a personal choice. And it's become so prevalent now that, like, being offended is like a badge of honor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious as to your view of the comedy landscape over the past few years.
Yeah, it's almost like being offended is an accomplishment sometimes,
Yeah.
Yeah, the past few years it's been wild. I didn't do political comedy until COVID, until like April, May of 2020. It didn't interest me. I didn't think politics were interesting to
Yeah.
talk about. I thought it was boring and cliche and had been done. And so I was in more of the topical comedy observational world. And 2020 hit, and I just personally saw a lot of stupidity happening, subjective stupidity. I thought that some of the things were stupid. I thought people who wore masks outside with no one around were being stupid.
Yeah.
And I also thought that people who would like openly argue at stores for stuff were stupid. Like, just there was just a lot of dumb in the world.
Yeah.
And I think a lot more people started recognizing those dumb things around the same time, and just kind of waking up to the seeing how the world actually operates in 2020, because now we're under more control than ever with lockdowns and mandates and masks and vaccines and all of these things that prior to then we never
thought about. Yeah.
With or think about. Yeah. And with that shift, I think a lot of people traveled to one end of the belief spectrum or the other. And that made a lot of people team up. And tribalism is natural in any group of social animals, right? But we created this crazy, like, toxic tribalism in 2020 that allowed people the opportunity to kind of vocalize how offensive they got, and then be supported by other people who could encourage them to share how offended they were. And that was almost like a virtue signaling type of thing. It's almost like getting it's like an echo chamber effect, right? Where you call out how offended you are because this comedy video did this, or you shouldn't be talking about masks, or why would you ever talk down to Republicans? They're trying to free America, or like whatever the case is. And then that person on Twitter or Facebook or in their own little vlog, they would then have hundreds or thousands of comments of people saying like, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. I hate that person too. And yeah.
And it releases more of those happy chemicals in your brain because you're getting the support and the notifications and the comments and the likes and the views. And it's this rush of a high stemming from choosing to be offended, or stemming from choosing to have a fight online. And for comedy specifically, that was good and bad. The good is that now comedy lives in extremes. It lives in heightening things into absolute madness. So as society itself is heightening into absolute madness, now comedy's boundary is way further than it was, because the level of insanity is so high that now we as comedians can mock that in an even higher way, right?
Totally.
And that's really fun. I think that's super fun. And the negative is that, if you're going to make a comedy video and be political about it, now the landscape is so polarized that a lot of my friends feel like they have to choose one side or the other. I've even felt like that before, but I naturally gravitate toward one side or the other when I'm poking fun at a topic.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy that the landscape has changed to the point where people vocalize being offended so much more often, and vocalize like as if they want to rile up people in their same belief circle to be against that guy. And we never had that before. We don't need you to pick up, surround yourself with a tribe of people who hate somebody for their comedy video. Just don't watch it, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
And years ago, that's what it was. Years ago, it was, that's not really for me. Let me move on.
Totally.
But now it's like, oh, I don't like that. And I need everybody to know that I don't like that.
And to me, it says so much more about the person that's hating right?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
you're hating on this parody or this comedy, right? I don't think that really says the comedian's doing something wrong so much as, and that's the thing about comedy that's always been like the debate is, are there any topics that are off limits? And I personally, I mean, I don't want to say that there aren't. Yeah. I mean, if something's deeply offensive to somebody and that, and then you're intentionally trying to hurt them when right. But I think for the most part, you can make fun of almost anything. I
You
can
can
make
make
fun
fun
of
of anything. There
yeah.
are certain things on the extreme that people just simply don't really make fun of.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to make something funny about a certain topic, right? But if you can do it and
creatively and actually it's funny,
then do it,
yeah,
right? Whether
yeah,
it's 9/11 or the Holocaust or some terrible, terrible thing,
yeah,
it's not off limits. It's just way more challenging to actually create a joke that won't come off as having bad intentions or won't just simply have bad intentions. Like, is the intention of the joke to make people laugh and lighten the mood around this specific topic so that we can break that barrier of taboo and actually approach this issue or this topic with a smile for once instead of letting it just breed negativity. But that's the thing now is, it used to be just those couple of examples that I just mentioned. Now, what's off limits? Ooh, don't make fun of climate change. Dude, don't make fun of California's governor. Don't make fun of Biden. Don't make fun of Kamala. She's a woman of color. She's in a position of power. You know what I mean? Like, anybody in a position of power deserves to be mocked. It doesn't matter who they are. And so now we have all these crazy new rules from people online in the comedy landscape, trying to set limits on what we can and cannot make fun of. And I think that's awful. I don't like that at all. So that's what me and people like JP and others, we don't see those limits. We just barrel right through and try to mock whatever we think deserves a little mocking,
Well, and to be fair, like I mentioned earlier, where, you kind of appeal to everybody, like your political videos early on, right? You did the Joe Rogan hosting the debate with Joe Biden and Donald Trump, right? So you made fun of everybody. Like, you weren't picking a side and poking fun. You were making fun of everybody, right? Which is, and I think even good SNL skits, they do the same thing, right? They're making fun of all the, like you said, people in power. By the way, who was the guy? So you did the Biden impression. You were phenomenal, right? Who was the guy that did the Trump impression? Because he was great too.
Yeah, that's Austin Nasso. Super funny. One of the best Trump impersonators I've ever seen. That Biden impression I did was actually I didn't like it at all. Now I don't like it. Back then, that was the first time I had ever done it, and it started to become Southern for some reason. It started to, like, the KFC guy, the Colonel. So looking back, I'm like, oof, that didn't deliver. The look was good. I think the physicality was good, but it's gotten a lot better since then. But that was a good one. Yeah. And then I did another one that was Joe Rogan talks to politicians. And that included like Ted Cruz. It included Mitch McConnell's turtle self. It included a couple others too. And on that video, what's funny is somebody commented like, why would you make fun of Ted Cruz? And I was like, why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Why would I not?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
So, the questions and the offendedness or the do this but not that kind of mentality.
You can make fun of someone I don't like, but you can't make fun of someone I do like, right?
Exactly. And that's
which is so silly.
It's crazy. It's everywhere. And
and that's someone that's not a fan of comedy, essentially, right? I would imagine, right? They're not into comedy. And so I mean, they're
not into comedy. They're into, hating on the libs or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Into owning the libs. And so why would I ever mock somebody that's conservative? They couldn't understand it. But that's the thing. That's where we once were. We were once in a spot where you could do anything to anybody through the lens of comedy. And now it is this like, do this, but not that mentality. Not everywhere. I will say this. The audience that I've started to recognize and attract in my corner of the game has been very similar to me, and they really react well when a side isn't chosen, or when I flip back and forth between videos and topics, mocking this side, that side, this thing, that thing.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of love for that. And
Nice.
that's what really gives me faith that a lot of people out there, even if they lean one way or the other, they can recognize comedy for comedy, and they don't have an expectation of you automatically taking their side first. So I do love that, because that's where I currently stand.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. You always are going to get hate, right? No matter what, you just have to realize that that's about them and their perspective. And I'm going to do what I do and come. And that's the thing. You mentioned intentions. I think that's it. You're like, if I'm coming from a good place, sure, I'll make mistakes from time to time, or I will absolutely offend someone from time to time. But as long as I know that I'm living in alignment with my values, I can sleep at night. I can feel good. Right. And I don't have to take anybody else's stuff personally. Right. You think that that's okay. You're entitled to your opinion. Right. I'm not going to take that on. You mentioned that you didn't like your Biden impression. It is funny how impressions too can slide. Right. You can just all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're like, my impression has this Southern Colonel Sanders.
Why am I Colonel Sanders? Yeah.
Yeah. My like whenever I do I can't do accent. So I don't do a lot of impersonations, but I'll try to do an accent. And my my daughter will call me. She's like, Dad, that my daughter loves doing English accent. She's 13, and I'll try to talk back to an English accent. It's like, Dad, you sound, Japanese or Chinese or Mexican. Like you don't sound. She's like, stop.
Yeah,
stop. You're ruining an English accent.
You're 10 countries away.
Yeah. So exactly. So I'm curious as to you mentioned that the Biden impression you don't like. What have been your favorite impression to do? Which one do you enjoy doing the most? I mean, you've done Eminem, The Rock, Gary Vaynerchuk, right? On and on. So what's been your favorite, and what's the one that either you think you nail the most or people have told you it's the most accurate?
Yeah, that's a great question. And thank you for allowing me to now feed my ego even more.
Please.
This is my breakfast today. So my favorite one, I think I got to say Eminem, because that was the first one that ever popped, and I didn't even expect it to really pop. And I'm such an Eminem fan. I think he's the greatest rapper of all time.
Yeah.
It forced me to start writing my parodies like him, because if you're going to do a parody of Eminem and have it be good, you have to write in his writing style. You have to nail these double entendres, triple entendres, these delivery patterns, these rhyme schemes throughout the verse and throughout the bars. And so that was really fun creatively. That was an awesome creative challenge. And he's just so angry.
Yeah. He's just so intense and
so angry, and he's so intense. And I love being like a high energy guy. I love that. I love dipping into that kind of frame of mind. So I really like that. People have told me that of all my impressions, the Joe Rogan sounds the most like Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I never really tried super hard to sound like him. So I think maybe we just have a similar natural cadence.
Vocal quality.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was fun too. And then of course the Gavin Newsom one has just done so well with California, because nobody was really doing a Gavin. I think, before I did the Gavin.
It's Gavin Newsom, baby.
And he sounds like he's gargling marbles. So that's why I lose my voice every time I do Gavin. Every time.
Nice.
Every time. I can't.
The way you got to get all throaty.
Yeah. It just goes, and it's just the whole time. But it's all been super fun. I never thought I would be an impressionist of any kind. So I started doing it, but I'm such a nerd for just like human behavior and psychology that when I approached doing some of these impressions, I love picking apart the behaviors and the physicality and the like decision making behind saying certain things for certain people. So it's been fun. Yeah. It's a blast.
That's cool. So probably one of my favorite recurring themes in your videos are how bros talk about blank, how bros talk about politics, how bros talk about nuclear war, how bros talk about the crisis in Ukraine, right? Like, so that, I mean, those characters are just so funny. Like you do all the guy rubbing soap on it, right, with the OCD, washing his hands the whole time. So here's my question. I've thought about this. I'm like, how does he film this? Like, I just, not being behind the scenes and never done a video where you're playing, and for anybody listening that hasn't seen this, like, he's playing 4 different characters typically, right? Three to 4 different.
Yeah.
3. And then you have your buddy with the curly hair.
Oh, Blake. Yeah. Blake
Like,
Weber.
is he like a good friend of yours?
He is. Yeah. He's one of my good friends. And he's been in some of those videos, but the series I think you're talking about is it's usually just me breaking down some like really deep, detailed topic within society. I'm writing one right now that's bros talk about quantum physics. And because my uncle is like a rocket scientist, a virtual reality developer, smartest person I know, and he's helping me write this like quantum physics version.
Nice.
And the inspiration behind doing those is like, I'm a bro. I grew up a bro.
Yeah.
I partied, I drank. I'm a total bro, you know.
Sure.
But I also have seen my own evolution into the conscious space and the wellness space, and just being more aware of life in general. And now I feel like I am a bro that also loves to pick apart these topics and learn about things. And so when I do these characters, it's funny because each one has their own very specific framework for how they think about things. And it's been such a fun way for me personally to learn about a topic, because now I got to dive into the war in Ukraine, or how they say they killed the guy out in Iran a year or so ago, or whatever it is. And I have to like actually learn about it and then almost translate it into bro
talk.
You know, I gotta figure out, okay, what's the metaphor for like weed that can fit in here or whatever. And so it's fun. I shoot each character one by one, and as if I'm talking to the other characters in the room, and then I cut it all together to make it look like a full conversation. So it's basically, what it really is a translation of the insanity of my brain onto my living room couch. It's bringing all the people that live inside of my head and putting them on the couch in real time.
The different nuances of your broness.
Yeah, exactly. You're seeing all sides of the bro of Brent.
Well, what I love is you have the one, and is that if I remember correctly, right? Like the one bro, which maybe is the closest to who you really are. Like that always drops the knowledge. Isn't that a theme?
Yeah. Yep.
Like he actually gives the highly intelligent, right?
Yeah.
The other guys are like, "Whoa, dude, what?"
Yeah, and he's drinking a Four Loko the entire time.
So funny. So that's the way you film it. So you write the whole thing out, right? Like the whole script, and then you sit there you dress in the one character, and then you read one line, and then pause, and then read that next line, right? And then you cut it all together.
Yeah, so I'll deliver all of his lines, and all of his reactions and all of his improv lines. If I have a script, but there's always some element of improv to everything I do. So I'll do that. I'll run through all of the lines a couple different ways, maybe 2 or 3 takes of each line, reactions to everything that everybody else is saying. Then I'll change and go to the next spot, and I'll run through all that person's lines and reactions to his left, to his right, whatever it is. And then, chop it all together, and it looks like one fluid conversation. And a lot of people have been like, wait, is that? I watched the whole thing 3 times before realizing they were all Brent.
Oh, so, shut up. How funny. Yeah. No, I mean, dude, it is so well done. Like the product, not just the acting, but the production on that. It's so well done, man. Bravo. Seriously.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, bro.
You mentioned Blake, the guy with the curly hair. That's how I'm identifying him. Were you guys? So he's funny, like, and you guys play off each other really, really well. Was he? Were you guys friends before, or did you like get together for comedy and then become friends, or were you guys already buddies and like?
Yeah, so we started rocking together. We knew each other for a while, just from like the open mic scene in LA, where you cross paths with everybody. We were never like friends during those days, but we were cool. We would just say, "Hey, what's up, man? Good to see you. Hey, good set. That was funny. Whatever."
Yeah.
That's kind of how that world operates. It's just so many people.
Sure.
And then in 2020, we followed each other on Instagram a lot and liked each other's videos and commented and DM'd and all that. And then in 2020, I had a couple ideas for videos that I thought he would be funny in. And so I invited him over. And the first video we made was how bros talk about conspiracy theories. It was just the 2 of us in this. And this is back when everything was a conspiracy theory. Now, some of the conspiracies we talked about, I think were proven to be true.
Yeah, conspiracy reality seems like it's the more accurate term now.
Exactly. And so we did those videos together, and he showed up, and I hadn't spoken to him in like a year or two.
Yeah.
And for anybody who's watched his videos, he has a very like Cartman style voice. He has a very unique voice.
Yeah.
He's always like, "What's up, dude? What's good, bro?
Yeah.
How are you, dude? Frick, dang." And that's what he's like online. So I hadn't spoken to him in a couple of years. He shows up at my door and he goes, "Hey, Brent, what's good, dude?" And I started laughing because I thought he was doing a voice, but that's just how he talks. And he's just the nicest guy, super, super funny.
Yeah.
And a lot of people ask me why I haven't moved out to Austin yet.
Yeah. That was, I thought about leading with that. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I get asked that question every time I talk to somebody that doesn't live in California. Why
Yeah.
don't you live in Texas or somewhere else?
Yeah.
And it's because I got people like Blake and my friend Nikki out here in
Yeah.
LA, and like, it's kind of
Your
my
crew.
team right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least
Nikki's great, man. In fact, I've only seen her in your videos. And then today I was like, oh, I bet she's her own person. So I went, I followed her on Instagram, went to her YouTube channel. I was like, wow, she's got a legit following on her own.
Oh, yeah, she's killer. Yeah. She's
How
awesome.
did you guys meet?
We met through a mutual friend, Stevie Emerson, who also does videos online. She had been in a bunch of stuff with him. I was trying to work with more people because I was just starting to get into the YouTube game. This is like 2018, maybe 20, something like that. And so I DM'd her. We exchanged numbers and we started shooting together just right away. We had like maybe one writing session on FaceTime, and then we shot a couple of videos. Got along great. You can tell in the creative space almost right away, I think, whether or not your vibe is going to align with somebody else's, whether or not your approach to creativity and your way of translating an idea from your head to the paper to the screen is going to be similar to somebody else's, or collaborative enough with somebody else's. And me and hers just clicked immediately, and the videos clicked and popped. And from then on, we were just, I consider her now my closest collaborator for sure.
Really?
And we're putting together some bigger stuff now too.
You guys have an incredible synergy. I thought when I saw you, I was like, oh, is that I was like, what's her name? Is she your girlfriend? I totally thought she was your girlfriend. I mean, you guys
everybody
really,
does.
Oh, sure.
Literally everybody does, which is hilarious. We don't even correct people anymore.
I mean, you'll probably end up breaking up with your current and end up marrying each other. That's my theory. You heard it here. It's cemented on this podcast. That's my theory.
Be careful who I share this podcast with now.
Don't share it with Nikki's boyfriend or your girlfriend. All right, I take it back. So I mentioned that, right? My buddy Garrett Gunderson invited me to do some stand up with him. So I'd love to talk to you. I'm curious about your creative process, and I think I'm going to call this episode "How to Be a Stand Up Comedian with Brent Pella." Right. So I think we've delivered on that a bit, and I want to keep that theme. How do you write how and when do you write your comedy? I would imagine a lot of it comes momentary shower thoughts. You hear something from like as an author, half of my material is like written in my phone on a note when I just am driving in the car and a thought pops in my head. But I'm curious, comedy wise, like, do you sit down every day for an hour? Like, break down your process.
I will break down the process. I will say though, first, if anybody actually like yourself is actually going to do comedy of some sort, what's even more important than writing jokes for the first time is coming to an understanding with yourself that you might suck. Like that, like everybody, I was awful, dude. Everybody's bad when they first start. That doesn't mean you're probably gonna be fantastic because you already do this and you have jokes that you know how to deliver a line and talk to people. But that was one of the biggest challenges for me, is realizing, oh, I'm bad at this and I need to get better when I first started. And that is what kind of kicked me in the ass to figure out a writing style, which is, I'll answer that now, is like, it's typically ideas will come to me at odd times. I could sit down for 3 hours, and then as soon as I stand up and go for a drive or a run, I'll have an idea then. I don't have a notebook with me then, computer then. So it kind of training your brain to be open at all times to receive whatever that idea is, or whatever that spark of that catalyst of creativity is. That's big. And then for me, that's just I write it down on my notes on my phone, or like I'll dictate it into a note, and
Yeah.
it's typically just a line or a phrase like,
Yeah.
you know, my girlfriend told me that I closed my mouth when I was sleeping once and I stopped breathing. And she told me like super casually, she was just like, "Hey, the other night, you know, you stopped breathing for a little bit. It was crazy." Anyway, want to get the salad for an appetizer? And I was like, "What? Excuse me." And so when she told me that, I just thought it was so funny. And so I wrote it down on my phone as a note. And so
Yeah.
now I'm trying to figure out how to make that into a
How to
joke.
work that in. Yeah.
That's hilarious. And so yeah, so I'll do that. I'll write down a note or I'll dictate a note, and then I'll bring that to the computer and I'll try to free write a little bit. But also, you know, I do hour-long shows now. I do my headline act is around an hour. So I'll write on stage. I love improvising.
Yeah.
I from an improv background. I love the free flow of just talking and trying to figure it out as I go. So I'll write. I consider that writing too. So I'll do that on stage. But for somebody that's preparing, you know, it's nice sometimes to do the Jerry Seinfeld method, which is to
Mm.
set a timer for a certain amount of time, 30 minutes, and not take your fingers off the keys.
Mm.
And you end up with 99% crap.
Yep.
But 1%, when you read it back through, you take that
Gold.
1%,
Yeah.
you start a new document, you put that 1% here, you set your timer again, and you try to go off of that. And maybe the next time you have 5%, right?
Yep.
And I think that's a really cool way of just annihilating writer's block and just forcing yourself through it. And topics are the easy thing. That's the easy part.
Sure.
Picking what to talk about, you know. But yeah, that's been what's worked for me from a writing point of view, at least.
That's great. And that's a great, that Jerry Seinfeld strategy for anybody listening, whether you're writing comedy or you want to be a writer or, you know, or you're trying to solve a problem, right? Set the timer, just free write. And I usually start with, I'm not sure what I'm going to write right now, but hopefully it's going to be good. And I need to think of something funny, right? Like I just start writing and then, yeah. And then like you said, you're like, ooh. And then, a couple ideas come up,
Yep.
you know, and it's gold. So you're, my understanding of you is you're a pretty spiritual person, I would say. Would you consider yourself pretty spiritual?
Yeah.
Right? Evolving from bro to spiritual.
I am a conscious bro.
Conscious bro.
Yeah.
So how do you view, you mentioned like receiving, that word popped out to me. In terms of tying spirituality into comedy, in whatever context that might resonate with you. Like I would love to hear you speak on that. And it could be in terms of just like, yeah, spiritually, like I just being open to allowing, the wisdom of whatever, God, the universe, like, the funniness, whatever, to come to show up, and keep open to receiving it versus like trying to force it. Or if they're just, or if you look at spirituality in terms of like the impact you're making by making people laugh, and that's a spiritual pursuit. So I'm curious just how you would talk about comedy and spirituality together.
Yeah, definitely. So, my mom raised me a hippie. She
Nice. Okay.
grew up in Davis, and she would bring me to Grateful Dead shows when I was a toddler. I had tie-dyed shirts and a reusable diaper. And I think a lot of that just inspired my approach to life throughout life. But as far as comedy and spirituality goes, I said before that a lot of comedians have the ability to flip over into drama because they have such they need to have a way to view the world and create a perspective that allows them to understand humanity better, so that they can then comment on humanity through the lens of comedy. And once I started to kind of understand that and learn more about that, it opened up my perspective toward the human experience to a whole new level. Because I really want to understand what the human experience is like, so that I can comment on it. And I want to understand what that human experience is like in politics and in the obsessions with pop culture and the effects social media has and how the news affects us. And all these little subtopics all are underneath the umbrella of human experience. And so I've tried to open my mind up more and more to learn about that, to study it, to communicate with people about it, and also, to open my mind to receive inspiration. And I do meditate. I've dabbled in psychedelics. I'm a big proponent of psychedelic medicine and plant medicine, and uh, those um, those avenues of learning for me have created a connection between my comedy and the human experience, that allows me to just comment on more things and in more ways than I would have without, taking those approaches. Um, and from a spiritual point of view too, I think, we're all trying to live with a purpose. We're all trying to figure out what our purpose is. And mine used to just be comedy, make people laugh.
Mm.
And as I developed spiritually and kind of mentally and emotionally throughout my own personal journey through life, that mission and purpose became more detailed and specific. And so what was once, oh, I'm here to make people laugh and spread joy,
Yeah.
is now like I'm here to shine a light on absurdity and make people choose and help people choose to laugh at things rather than choose to be upset or offended or ignore or fight against. Like I really want to inspire the first reaction to something to be laughing, because that's what, that was the whole purpose of the court jester. He wanted to mock the king so that the king would laugh at himself.
Yeah.
And I love doing that. And so from a spiritual point of view, the choose to laugh objective now is aligned, because I feel like it's raising people's awareness to what can happen when you choose to laugh rather than choose to fight or choose to be negative. And what can happen is you're just a happier person. You live a happier life, because we're all going to die. We're all going to die.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so are you choosing to travel that road to death with negativity, or are you going to travel that road to death with laughter? And that's kind of that. Hopefully that answers the question a little bit. I know.
It really does in a way. Yeah. I like that. It's, I think about laughter as the best medicine, and your Dr. Pella, right? Like, delivering not only the laughter, but the message of like, let's laugh. And I personally am the person that will, like, my wife will call me out. I find the humor in everything, in anything, right? I mean, you do too, right? Anyone who's in comedy does. But to the point where she's like, that's inappropriate. I'm like, how is anything? Who said it's inappropriate? Like, according to who? Right? Because you don't think it's appropriate, right? Like, I thought it was funny or whatever, And I think about, what you just said, that really, God, that it really is a beautiful purpose. With such a spiritual undertone. I think about, like, with kids, when I have a 10-year-old son, and, like the other day, he was like so upset at me and my, just the world, whatever. He was upset with me and my wife. Right. And then we got him laughing, right. And he was upset because he was in pain, because he had this like bug bite and his hand was swollen. He was having an allergic reaction. And then that led to other stuff, and then we got him laughing. Right. And what it did is the physical pain subsided, right? The mental and emotional pain subsided, and so you think about that. If you can go through life with laughter being like love and laughter, I would like, if those are the two primary lenses that you view every experience, dude, I think that's going to be a winning life.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a choice. It's truly a choice. And I think we're living in a time where a lot of people don't know they have that choice, or they don't think that it's a choice. They think that that's a waste of time, and we need to be more serious about everything and make sure that we're fighting the good fight for this and this and this.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, we can relax a little bit. Yeah. The world isn't on fire completely. We can get through these challenges together. Everybody's going to have different beliefs about different things, and laugh your way through it, instead of raging and tweeting your way through it,
Yeah. No, amen, man. I want to be laughing on my deathbed, right? Like, laughing
100%.
at the right. Why not? What's a better way to go out? So I'm tempted to end it there, because that was such a powerful message. But there was one other thing I wanted to ask you about, and it's your show on MTV. Talk about, are you still on that show?
Yeah, that's Wild and Out, Nick Cannon's show. And I actually just got back from Atlanta yesterday. We were shooting all week out there for the new season. That has been just the most fun experience ever. I got that show because I had been doing videos online and I didn't have an agent. I didn't have a manager. I was just making videos and putting them out and doing stand up. And I was a PA, driving, big, huge production trucks with thousands of dollars of equipment and light stands and all these things. And I would go to set and I'd like be editing a video at lunch in the truck and running coffee and everything. And then I got home from one of those jobs one day, and I had a DM in my on Instagram, and it was from Nick Cannon.
No way.
Yeah, so get this. I had made a video called How the Grinch Took Mushrooms, and I was in full Grinch makeup. It took like 3 hours.
I remember that, yeah.
And then that same night we shot that video. When we were done with the video, we stripped off the makeup, which took about an hour, cleaned me all up, and we went and shot an Eminem parody. That was Eminem dissing Nick Cannon because Nick had put out a diss track toward Eminem. I knew Eminem wasn't going to respond, so I dressed up as Eminem and I did a diss track toward Nick. So I did it the same night as the Grinch video, which was right before Christmas. We barely had time. Everybody had flights the next day to go home. I knew this was the only opportunity I could shoot this video. So we shot it that night. I stayed up the entire night editing to put it out the next morning. And apparently Nick saw it. So the next day I had the PA job. The video came out. It went viral online. Somebody sent it to Nick. He DMs me. I get the DM. It says like, "Hey bro, you ready to wild out?"
No way.
We had a quick conversation on Instagram. He invited me out to his office a couple days later. And he cast me on the show right there in his office. Now, after that, what was crazy is COVID hit. So COVID threw off everything for the whole year. Well, an entire year passed. I didn't know if I was ever going to be on the show. I didn't know if the show was going to come back. Nobody knew anything.
So wait, you hadn't been on the show at all when COVID hit?
Nope.
Oh, so you got the gig and then COVID hit. Oh man.
I got the gig and COVID took it away.
How depressing. If I were you, COVID would have been extra depressing without knowing.
That's part of why I went crazy with all the videos. So then the show gets taken away, right? We're told they don't know if it's ever going to come back. This is now spring 2020. I tripled down on videos. So it went from 1 to 3 a week.
Nice.
And I don't hear from Nick for like 8 or 9 months. And then he FaceTimes me in February 2021. And
so wait, literally, were you just looking at your phone and all of a sudden it's a FaceTime from Nick Cannon?
It's an LA number.
Okay.
It's a FaceTime. So I was like, okay, it's got to be a person and not a scam. If it's a FaceTime,
yeah.
Who this is? It's Nick. And he says, "Hey bro, we're back. We're coming back for the next season 16. We're shooting in the summer." He was walking toward a private jet at the time. And I was like, "Where are you going? Where are you right now?" He was like, "Oh, I'm traveling up to see one of my baby mamas." And I was like, "Yeah, that makes sense."
Nice.
And so he was, he and one of the producers were like, "We love all the stuff you've been putting out. You've stayed on it. You're growing. We love to see that. We're bringing you back. We want to keep our word to you." And he brought me back on. And so I literally have nothing but good things to say about Nick Cannon as a human being and as a person. He is humble, gracious, giving. It's been an incredible opportunity. The people on the show are super fun to work with on the cast.
Yeah.
Just incredible performers and creatives and just fun, friendly people. And I might not have gotten that opportunity if I hadn't, doubled down that night and shot that Eminem diss video. And then
extra video, right?
You never know. It's these little things, dude. Like if that video didn't get released at the exact moment it did, I don't know if whoever showed him would have ended up seeing it, and I don't know if it would have gotten to him, and I would be doing what I'm doing with them now. So, I take that to heart. And when you talk about spirituality, that's like the universe aligning. Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
But there's also, you have to align yourself. You know what I mean? You got to really be the catalyst for your own goals to come true, for your own opportunities to happen. So that's the lesson I took from that. But the show in general is super fun. It's on.
Yeah. For those that aren't familiar, what's Wild Out?
It's Whose Line Is It Anyway? But it's basically like the black version of that. Okay. So it's a very urban show. There's a lot of hip hop elements to it. It's rooted in like modern day urban black culture. And
now you're white, so are you like the token white guy on the show?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Which is super fun. And the great thing about that show is, in this era of fragile, offensiveness,
Yeah.
that show really doesn't give a shit. That show, it's a roast show. So there's roast jokes all the time. There's what some people would call body shaming, we would call a hilarious joke on the show.
Yeah.
Right. And it's because, their style of roasting and joking on that show is meant to break through stereotypes so that we can all laugh at each other, no matter who you are, what size, shape, or color you are. We can all laugh about it and break through those stereotypes, because at the end of the day, we're all best friends on the show. So that's on VH1, and the next, it's season 18 just finished, and then the next season's air, I think, next year.
And how many seasons have you done? One season now, or more than one?
I've done 4 so far.
4.
Yeah.
Yep. Right on. And so people can watch that on VH1 or YouTube, VH1, right? I mean, I think go to YouTube, watch other videos.
Clips. Yeah, YouTube
that's where I've seen clips, I think. Yeah.
YouTube and Instagram have the most clips, and then VH1 and Paramount Plus air the live episodes, I think, something like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, man, I was a fan coming into today, and I'm a bigger fan wrapping up the episode. I really like you, Brent, dude. You're a good person. JP's told me, Brent is like one of the best human beings you will ever meet. Right. So that's a good,
I paid him to say that, so he should have.
Yeah, no, yeah, totally. That's a good foundation, though. Where's the best place for people to find you, support you, so on and so forth?
So I'm on tour a lot. I just finished up a big summer tour, but I do have some dates coming up. September 23rd. I don't know when this comes out, but September 23rd, I'm in Sedona, Arizona. And then in November, I'm doing Oklahoma City and Dallas. BrentPella.com/shows for tour dates and tickets. Instagram is @Brent Pella. Same on YouTube if you want to watch videos. And then I did also just release a rosé wine, which I'm super excited about.
Dude, mentioned that. I was on the site. I was like, whoa, Brent's super entrepreneurial now. Or like,
yeah. So I got to send you a couple of bottles. It's a Vibe Rosé. So we're here to raise
with a Y. Vibe, VYB. Yeah.
VYBROSE.com. You can check that out and see what we got going on. We're shipping to Texas, but I'll send you some bottles too.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm not a wine drinker, but I love when my wife drinks it. So yeah, send me some bottles.
Perfect. I appreciate it, bro.
All right, man. Well, much love to you, and goal achievers and members of the Miracle Morning community. I love you. I hope you enjoyed this conversation even half as much as I did with Brent, and we'll have to have him on again. Love you, and I will talk to you next week.